beautiful people. Welcome to the first episode of Storied. Storied is a platform for a diverse group of women to have conversations about things that matter. I believe in the power of narratives, and this is our opportunity to add our voice to the conversation and to share our experience from our own perspective and our own voice. I am joined by a group of dynamic and diverse, brilliant women with a set of very unique and different experiences. I have to my right, Angela, a makeup artist. I have Tahira, who is working in a French luxury brand. I have Ashley, who is a news editor, and I have Kivi, who works at a French retail brand. We've seen a lot of burgeoning movements in regards to women. We have Lemonade from Beyonce. We have Black Girls Magic. We also have a lot of conversation about women supporting women. And do we feel like we have currently a movement or a cause to align around to create a sense of community and create a sense of cohesiveness with Black women? Angela, what are your thoughts?
I definitely think that we do. As you mentioned, we have Black Girls Are Magic, which was actually started by African American woman on Twitter to lift up and empower women. The PBJ is her Twitter handle. And she started that hashtag because there was so much negativity centered around Black women, and she just felt like we needed something to uplift and empower us. So not only did she start that hashtag, she started making shirts. She's made onesies, and it started on Teespring, her selling the T-shirts, and it has expanded. As we've seen, news outlets such as Huffington Post and New York Times have mentioned this same hashtag and talking about it, and a lot of people try to kind of take it and adapt it into something it's not, and she remains adamant to keep it what it is. We also have Black Girls Rock, which is put on every year. We've had Michelle Obama speak at it, and it's a time where we can come together as Black women, women of color, and celebrate ourselves, celebrate each other, and talk about the strides forward that we're making.
So there's a couple other movements that exist too, right? We have the feminist movement, we have Black Lives Matter. Kivi, what are your thoughts on it? Is the role of women of color in those movements?
You've seen a lot of, especially with the tragedies within the community regarding police and whatnot, you've seen a lot of the Black women, step into the role in the face of, especially the Black Lives Matter, because it's the wives and the mothers of these children and these men who have come forward and spoken about the injustices that have happened. And I do feel that Black women have kind of been the voice for women of color. Just because I feel like we've definitely had to step it up a bit. That being said, within the feminist movement, I do feel that we do tend to take the forefront on that, whether or not we should for all women of color, or even, within the Asian community or the Latin community. I think that's something that, we can't really be the face for them because we don't really know their experience. And I feel that when you have, because sometimes they look to us because we are so vocal, we're very much out there in the front, that they want us to kind of, I guess, help them along in their cause, and I feel like that's definitely something we should be doing, but we can't be the face for someone else when we haven't gone through their experiences. We can't fight their battles for them, one, because we're fighting our own, and then I also think at an individual level, we wouldn't, or maybe we shouldn't, look to other people to fight our own battles. So why would we look for a certain group to fight for another group's battles? We may have some similarities within those battles, but I think it should be someone from that group to step forward, and then we all stand together. I don't think it should just be Black women standing up for women of color and speaking about all those issues.
And then I think another issue is, as we saw with Patricia Arquette, I think it is,
yes,
when people talk about women, somehow they think this may only apply to white women. I forgot exactly what she said, but afterwards she was saying that straight white women, maybe. She was saying gay people, Black people, we stood up for you, so now we need you to stand up for us. So I think that was just a high profile example of how sometimes people forget that there are all these overlapping categories, if you will, and that Black women are still women, that gay people can be women, So I think that's also something that needs to be checked or it needs to be acknowledged. And I think the internet did a good job of that. But, you know, if a celebrity has this national stage and she's saying that, then who knows what is on the minds of other people that may think like she does.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like women of color or Black women should have a common cause that they're aligned to, or that is necessary to create a more sense of community and support?
I honestly think we do have like a lot of movements within movements. There are a lot of fragments, there are a lot of elements, but in terms of collectively structuring like a foundation to build up a solid movement where someone could look at us and say, this is what they stand for, this is what they're fighting for, this is a goal they're working towards. I think that's still slowly in the progress, partly because for so many years we have kind of not necessarily latched on, but we've been quick to kind of fight other people's struggles as it pertains to us, but not so much for us. Like when it comes to voting, when it comes to simple things like pay and equal pay with men, we do join the ranks, but then we don't look at it all the time from the perspective of how it affects us directly. But now I think slowly we are getting there where we're like, okay, this is what we need to focus on for Black girls coming up. This is what we need to focus on for the Black women who are still here. And then once we have our strong foundation, once we have something more set, we can then be there, you know, in a way for other people. Because I don't think you have to only be for one cause and not integrate yourself in another.
Right. So that goes back to Kivi's point earlier, right, about kind of speaking up or leading the charge or talking, you know, sharing our voice on behalf of other people, but not necessarily be able to identify that support in other groups. And to your point, there's a lot of different causes that we could get aligned around. So Ashley, I want to ask, there's a lot of issues, there's a lot of challenges. There's pay equity, there's income disparity, there's racism, inequality. Where do you feel like we as women of color or as Black women should really be investing our energy?
I think that unfortunately there is a lot to pick from as far as what we want to tackle first. And I don't think that that's something that we all have to decide as a group. I think that's something personal that you need to look at yourself and ask, like, what do I want to be devoting most of my energy to? But I do think that one of the biggest issues that is facing Black women just in general is this, lack of financial empowerment, from the minimum wage being $7.25, which is not a livable wage, to the underrepresentation of Black women and women of color, people of color in leadership roles, in regular roles and managerial positions in Fortune 500 companies. So I think it's just finding what matters to you and then making sure that you are advocating for that in one way or another. But I do feel like we can also benefit from a lot of general movements, such as the Fight for 15, which is trying to increase the minimum wage to $15, because we are represented like in those areas. Like, I think over some 5-year period, like the number of minimum wage workers who were Black women or Black, it doubled. So it's like if you raise the floor for the amount of people that are making more money just on the minimum level, then that will raise the floor for everyone else. And of course, everyone already knows that we're making on average 64 cents on the white man's dollar. So I think that says a lot right there.
We still have lack of representation in corporate America and a lot of other kind of industries or facets as well. What do you think are the implications of that long term?
Well, I think that, first of all, obviously, you know, there are people in the country who have had a 300-year head start to start building generational wealth. So obviously that is holding you back when you're living paycheck to paycheck. You don't have as much room or a cushion to take risks, to try to become an entrepreneur. Like, if you're just trying to feed your kids, like, there's so much that you're not able to venture out and do or to save. So I think all of this just goes back to just giving people the opportunity to make more money, especially if they're working in America. I think at the very minimum. So I think it starts there with just making sure that people can live off of what they're making at this job they're spending 40 hours at, so they can save that money and maybe start from there.
Other thoughts?
I think that generational wealth really creates this culture of, not just a culture, it creates the ability to have resources that those who don't have that access unfortunately miss out on. And I think that ties even back down to education and the types of schooling that we see, the preparedness we see of students who are going from elementary to middle school to high school and then off to college, because a lot of students leave school and go to college and are very much unprepared for what they're going to be faced with. So if you got a scholarship, let's say an athletic scholarship to a Ivy League school or to a very prominent school, academically you may begin to fall behind, and I think in our culture we've created this idea that you need to be like an athlete to make it out so that you can go to a really good school. And then we don't really give our children these other options, like, hey, you could go into science and you can go into math and technology. And especially when it comes to women of color, well, we're starting to see now, actually, in 2016, a lot more support of women of color in STEM-related job fields. But we didn't really see that. Like, when I was in school, like, I hated math. And there were no, like, boys in the class were always known to just be better. Like, when we did Around the World, which is a multiplication game, where you stand up and do a multiplication, and whoever wins goes on to the next round. You go around the class, around the world. Boys always won. And it was always like, well, it's okay. It's a boy. He's going to win. It's fine.
So part of the work at hand is empowering ourselves and generations to come, right? So
and they need resources for that.
I want to ask a very personal question about your experience. Do you feel empowered as a Black woman?
Well, honestly, I think as I enter into my 30s, I feel more empowered than I ever have. And I attribute that to the changing social climate in my community. In our community, we have things like Black Girls Are Magic, Black Girls Rock. We have, artists like Beyonce who are somebody that we can see ourselves in, and we see the art that is starting to shape our society and kind of shift us in a gear where we're more than ever proud to be, women of color. So I definitely feel being, and then I live in New York City, so I feel like this is city. Yeah, this is like a city that breeds, acceptance of especially of liberal arts, of just finding yourself, of just hustling and grinding. So I will say that, as a child, I definitely felt kind of like a caged bird. It's cliche, but I definitely felt in my small city, which it wasn't small by numbers, but it was a small city. I felt like that there was more out there that I was missing. I felt like that I needed to get out. I needed to break out of this cage in order to be to try to find whatever I thought I was supposed to be. And I really didn't get to embrace that until I came to New York. So I definitely feel empowered now. Like, I feel like I can do whatever. And I mean, that doesn't go with, that's not me being naive and not thinking that things will come along that may try to hinder me, but I know who I am as a woman, and I feel affirmed in my Blackness and in my womanhood. So with that, like, I'm unstoppable, and I really don't care what anybody else thinks about it,
I love it.
Thank you.
And then again, just with all the movements, I went natural, like, oh gosh, almost 5 years ago now, and I feel like that was like the first step in me feeling like, okay, like you said, like reaffirming like my Blackness and getting to know a little bit more of what that means and what that is, and I don't know, I love it. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I think even with all of these, all these studies telling us how we're perceived by other people, I still feel, as far as what I can do, I feel like I can take that up to the limit. So I can't control how they're going to look at my resume, or they're going to look at me when I come in, or how I'm going to be treated by a doctor or someone I'm trying to get a loan from, anything. But I know, as far as me being, I guess, comfortable and feeling like I'm proud to be a Black woman, I think I definitely am there. And I think the climate has helped, like within our community. It's just has been telling us, okay, you can unlearn everything that society has been teaching you.
That's good.
Just to piggyback off of your point, it's also because I work in the fashion industry, and it's like an industry of like image, ego, materialism. Okay. Telling the truth, keeping it real. But, it's like at the same time, over the past few years, you see more of us basically in these positions on the cover of magazines, looking great, killing it. Viola Davis, Kerry Washington, all of those people, Michelle Obama. I mean, obviously,
Right.
we have those people to look up to. So for me, it's like tunnel vision. It's like, I'm not worried about these stereotypes that people have just tried to fling at me for all these years. I'm looking at the women who have stepped outside of those boxes, who really never even existed in those boxes, and realizing I'm not in that box. That doesn't apply to me. That doesn't apply to her. It's just us, me, I, tunnel vision, and the goal.
So that's what makes this platform even more important, right? Because we're showcasing women that don't fit into this box that's, you know, society has decided to create for us, and that we can share what is our experience and our vision and our actual reality, right, from our own voices versus someone else kind of ascribing an experience and a reality to us.